Before we begin this week's episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, I want to tell you of a great guide that I made just for you. It's the 12 financial mistakes that keep physicians from building wealth. After talking to hundreds of physicians, I've heard many mistakes, and these are the ones that I thought were most important to share so that you can potentially avoid making these mistakes, or if you've already made them, learn a bit about how you might be able to recover. You can grab the guide at my website, www.growyourwealthymindset.com/12 financial mistakes. Now on to this week's episode. Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Chiang. Hello, and welcome back to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. One of the parts of hosting the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast is that it pushes me to learn more about different aspects of finance and investing. There are things I already know, but putting together an episode leads me to do a deeper dive, confirming facts and updating myself on anything that may have changed. One financial tool I've heard about for years, but haven't taken the time to explore or decide if and when I should use one, is a donor advised fund, or DAF for short. This is a tool for charitable giving. A donor advised fund is essentially a charitable investment account designed to hold, invest, and give assets to nonprofits. Before I go more into donor advised funds, let me start out by saying that how much each person or family donates to charity is completely personal. Some people have specific goals on how much they want to give, while others give in a more reactionary way, or when specific opportunities arise. Some give to specific organizations every year, while others give to all different organizations. Some donate their time or expertise as opposed to donating money or assets. There's no wrong or right when it comes to philanthropy. How to give or how much to give. When donating directly to charities, the easiest thing is often cash. Some charities, like NPR, also advertise that you can donate your old car, even if it's not drivable. You can donate non-perishable foods to food banks, but from what I understand, even food banks often prefer cash. This allows them to buy exactly what they need, and in bulk at a lower cost than retail. While organizations like Wigs for Kids appreciate hair donations, they still need money to actually make wigs and hair pieces. That said, donating cash isn't always the most financially advantageous way to give. For example, if you own individual stock that has significantly appreciated in value, both you and the charity get more benefit if you donate the stock directly. This would give you a tax deduction for the current market value of the stock, and the charity can sell that stock for its current market value. If you were to sell the stock, you would end up paying capital gains on the appreciation of that stock. You could then donate the proceeds of that stock sale, but ultimately the charity would receive less and you would get a smaller tax deduction. While large charities may be able to accept stock directly, not all charities have the infrastructure to support accepting donations like stock. This is where donor-advised funds are especially useful. The DAF accepts and sells the stock, handles all the paperwork, and then sends the cash to the nonprofit you choose. You avoid capital gains taxes, still get the charitable deduction, and the charity receives an easy-to-use cash donation. Another benefit is that when you contribute to a donor-advised fund, you are eligible for an immediate tax deduction. This is great if you have a higher tax year and you would like to offset those taxes with a charitable donation, but you don't know what nonprofit you want to actually donate to. Donor advised funds are also great for donating assets other than cash. I already talked about stocks, but you can also donate bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. Depending on the DAF, you may also be able to donate private company stock, restricted stock, partnership or LLC interest, real estate, and cryptocurrency. Some DAFs even accept art, collectibles, and other tangible property. Some would advocate that it's always better to donate an appreciated asset. If you have a charity you currently want to donate towards, you can donate a few shares of an index fund or ETF that you bought years ago that has appreciated. Then use cash to replace those shares that you donated. You've now increased your cost basis on the shares you currently own and get a tax deduction for the shares you've donated. It's sort of the reverse of tax loss harvesting. Of course, I'm not an accountant, so if you want to do strategies like this, please consult your own CPA. It's important to know that donations to a DAF are irrevocable. Once you give the money or asset, it's no longer yours. If you contribute something other than cash or marketable securities, the DAF typically liquidates the asset and credits the proceeds to your account, minus any fees that they charge for that. You then recommend grants to the charities you'd like to support, and the DAF will then go ahead and send that money to the charity. Meanwhile, your contributions can be invested according to your preferences, and any growth is tax-free while it's in the account. This means that you can take the tax deduction in the year you contribute, but wait until later to decide which charities will benefit. DAFs can help with tax planning. If you're close to the threshold between itemizing deductions and taking the standard deduction, you could bunch charitable contributions into 1 year, donating several years' worth of charitable donations to a DAF, itemizing that year, and then taking the standard deduction in off years. That being said, timing does matter. Some assets take longer to process. For example, Fidelity Charitable requires cryptocurrency donation paperwork by December 26th, and the assets must clear the blockchain by December 31st for you to claim the deduction that year. Which is a good segue into talking about specific DAFs and how they work. I'll start with Fidelity Charitable since I already mentioned that one. Fidelity Charitable is the largest DAF sponsor in the United States, distributing $14.9 billion to charities in 2024. According to their annual report, more than 350,000 donors recommended nearly 2.7 million grants. The donor-advised fund offered by Fidelity Charitable is called the Giving Account. While affiliated with Fidelity Investments, Fidelity Charitable operates as a separate 501c3 public charity. They also accept private company stock, including from C Corps, S Corps, as well as LLC and limited partnership interest. You can donate cryptocurrency, private equity, life insurance interest, hedge fund interest, and even oil and gas royalty interest. There's no minimum balance to open an account for contribution. The minimum grant to a charity is $50. The administration fee starts at 0.6% of assets or $100 annually, whichever is greater. That means it makes sense to start with at least $16,667 so that the percentage fee applies instead of that $100 minimum. The fee decreases as the balance grows larger, but we're talking about pretty big numbers. On top of that, you pay investment-related fees, such as mutual fund expense ratios, which range from about 0.015% to 0.91%. Overall, it looks like total costs typically come in around 1% annually, which is not ideal, but admittedly lower than the overhead of starting your own private foundation or even donating using your credit card. After all, either you're paying the transaction fee for that credit card or the charity you're donating to is. So that means less money the charity can use for their mission. Schwab offers DAFs to their partner nonprofit, DAF Giving 360, or maybe they call it DAF Giving 360. It was previously called Schwab Charitable. It's also a public charity providing DAFs and philanthropic services. In 2024, DAF Giving 360 donors granted more than $7.7 billion to charities. DAF Giving 360 accepts most of the same asset types as Fidelity Charitable, plus fine art, collectibles, and real estate. Like Fidelity Charitable, there's no minimum to open an account or to contribute, and the minimum grant is $50. Their administration fee also starts at 0.6% and decreases with larger balances, but unlike Fidelity, there's no 100 minimum annual fee. You may be wondering about Vanguard, since I normally talk a lot about investing in Vanguard's index funds. Vanguard Charitable was founded in 1997 by the Vanguard Group, but operates independently as a 501c3. In 2024, it distributed $3.1 billion to 62,586 charities. Vanguard Charitable accepts stocks, bonds, private business interest, hedge fund interest, life insurance interest, and real estate, as well as fine art and collectibles. Unlike Fidelity or Schwab, Vanguard does not currently accept cryptocurrency. Vanguard Charitable requires a $25,000 minimum initial contribution and $5,000 for each additional contribution. The minimum grant to a charity is $500. These amounts are much higher than Fidelity Charitable Giving Account or Schwab's DAF Giving 360 accounts. Administration fees also start at 0.6% and decline with larger balances, plus investment fees, similar to the two previous accounts I mentioned. There is also the Morgan Stanley Global Impact Fund and the Goldman Sachs Philanthropy Fund. As you may have noticed, the donor advised funds I've mentioned so far are all tied to an investment or financial firm. Donor advised fund sponsors need to be nonprofits, and nonprofits generally have trouble investing in technology and the operations necessary to run a donor advised fund, so they generally partner with a for-profit company that can help them with that end of things. Likely because they are partnered with an investing firm, these DAFs or DAFs charge fees similar to what investment firms do. There is an argument that this means that they cater more to clients with larger accounts, though I don't know if that's necessarily true. There are other sponsors that have partnered with technology firms that aren't necessarily finance related. Daffy is a donor-advised fund sponsor that's partnered with developer APIs so that everything can be done through the Daffy app. Daffy charges a flat monthly membership that is currently ranging from $3 to $20 a month, so that less of your contribution goes to fees and more goes to the charities you want to support. Their website states that they offer, quote, high-quality, low-cost investment portfolios, end quote, and have mostly Vanguard and BlackRock funds, as well as crypto options for investing. They claim an average expense ratio of 0.05%. There is no minimum to open an account, and the minimum donation recommendation is $18. They are a newer nonprofit, which launched in 2021. Their website reports that $198 million was set aside for charity in 2024. The Charity Vest platform is powered by Foundation Source Philanthropic Services, Inc., a philanthropy technology company focused on creating the future of giving technology. It was founded in 2016 and acquired by Foundation Source in October of 2024. Charity Vest offers a basic donor advised fund account with no starting admin fees and no minimum contribution. The caveat is that they do not offer any investment choices in this account. This is a good option if you have an appreciated asset that you want to donate to a specific charity that you have already identified. You don't want to open an account and put an asset in there and just let it sit because it's not going to grow. It's just going to be converted to cash, and that cash balance will stay there, earning no interest. Charity Vest Basic DAF accepts stock, crypto, and different equity positions that will convert to cash. Once they convert the appreciated asset to cash, you can direct the donation to your chosen charity. While this account is not great for holding money that you want to donate in the future, it is a good option if you plan to donate an appreciated asset now. There are many other DAF sponsors, such as National Philanthropic Trust, which specializes in complex donations like real estate and business interests. They were founded out of a family office in 1996 and later began partnering with financial institutions to provide donor-advised funds to institutional clients. According to equity.org, they were second to Fidelity Charitable in U.S. charities receiving the most contributions in 2022. Which leads us to some of the downsides to DAFs. When you donate to a DAF, the contribution legally belongs to the sponsoring organization. While you can recommend what charities you want to support, the sponsor has ultimate legal control. DAFs are not required to distribute funds on any timeline, so money could technically sit in a DAF indefinitely. This is a point that's been made by inequality.org. On their website, they report that in 2022, 10 of the 20 charities receiving the most contributions in the United States were donor-advised funds. The top 3 charities receiving the most donations in 2022 were all donor-advised funds: Fidelity Charitable Gift Fund, National Philanthropic Trust, and Schwab Charitable Fund. 4th place was Feeding America, an operating nonprofit, and 5th was Vanguard Charitable. Per the online article, donor-advised funds have been growing explosively and now accept 1/4 of all U.S. individual charitable giving. Fidelity Charitable accepted over $15 billion in donations in 2022, but only distributed $11.8 billion in 2023. Inequality.org would like to see reforms requiring DAFs to pay out funds within 5 years of receipt so that the money goes to the charities and doesn't sit in investments. If you want to read more about this topic, the link for the article on inequality.org is in the show notes. There also have been risks in the past. For example, when the National Heritage Foundation, a DAF sponsor, went bankrupt in 2009, donor contributions were tied up and did not go to the charities intended. While most large sponsors like Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard are financially stable, it's important to remember that legally, the money is no longer yours once given. And of course, there are the fees. Sponsors make money from administration and from investment management fees, so donors need to weigh the cost. Since these sponsors are nonprofit, it's not like there's someone specific that may be profiting a lot from these fees, but you could imagine that the people working for donor-advised funds still have salaries to pay for the work that they do, and those salaries may be quite generous. They can also use money that they make off administration fees for legitimate business expenses, which does include things like holiday parties. Why have others used donor-advised funds? A Fidelity charitable study found that 76% of donors used a donor-advised fund to contribute appreciated assets. 68% used one to give after a financial windfall, and 62% used one to maintain their charitable giving in retirement. To sum it all up, donor-advised funds can be used to donate appreciated assets or assets other than cash to charities, as well as to obtain an immediate tax deduction while deciding which charities to grant the funds. However, there are potential downsides, including fees and loss of control, such that your charity of choice may not actually receive the donation you intended for it. If you, like me, now know more about donor-advised funds, would you consider using one? Personally, I think a donor-advised fund makes sense for donating assets that have grown a lot in value, or even for estate planning if I outlive my husband and want to direct assets to charity. For now, though, with my current financial situation and charitable giving habits, I don't see a strong reason to use a donor-advised fund. However, if I do find myself needing a good tax deduction and want to make a significant donation to a charity, then at that point I may actually consider using a donor-advised fund. Thank you so much for being a listener of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. If you've been a longtime listener and you haven't yet left a review, I would love it if you could leave a 5-star review with Apple Podcast or with whatever podcast app that you're currently listening to this podcast on. Have a wonderful week, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you. Don't forget to pick up your guide, 12 Financial Mistakes That Keep Physicians from Building Wealth. You can grab that guide at my website, www.growyourwealthymindset.com/12 financial mistakes. You'll also find that link in the show notes.